Okay, welcome everyone to the annual general meeting of Seprod. I know there are a number of people that are watching online, so welcome to you in Jamaica and also those who are watching abroad. And it's good to see people physically here at our AGM, so welcome. Good to see you in the flesh again. I will call Damien Dodd, the Corporate Secretary, to give the notice of the meeting.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Notice of annual general meeting. Notice is hereby given that the 83rd annual general meeting of Seprod Limited will be held at the Jamaica Pegasus Hotel, 81 Oxford Boulevard, Kingston 5, on September 19, 2022, at 11 a.m. The meeting will be held in a hybrid format, both physical and virtual, for the purpose of transacting the following business. 1, to receive the audited accounts and the reports of the directors and auditors. To consider, and if thought fit, pass the following resolution. That the directors' report, the auditors' report, and the audited accounts for the year ended December 31, 2021 be and are hereby adopted. 2, to elect directors. The directors retiring from office by rotation pursuant to Articles 89 and 91 of the company's Articles of Association are Mr. Christopher Gentles, Mr. Nicholas Jones, Mr. Patrick Scott, and Mr. Mark Swomey, who, being eligible, offer themselves for re-election. To consider and if thought fit, pass the following resolutions. Resolution 2A, that the directors retiring from office by rotation and offering themselves for re-election be elected en bloc. Resolution 2B, that Mr. Christopher Gentles, Mr. Nicholas Jones, Mr. Patrick Scott, and Mr. Mark Swomey be re-elected as directors. 3, to fix the remuneration of directors. To consider and if thought fit, pass the following resolution. That the amount shown in the audited accounts as directors' remuneration for the year ended December 2021, 31st December 2021, be and is hereby approved. 4, to appoint auditors and authorize the director to fix the remuneration of the auditors. To consider, and if thought fit, pass the following resolution. Resolution 4A, that PricewaterhouseCoopers, having indicated their willingness to continue in office as auditors, be reappointed auditors for the ensuing year. Resolution 4B, that the directors be authorized to agree on the remuneration of the auditors. 5, to transact any other business which may properly be transacted at an annual general meeting. The notice is dated 25th April 2022, signed by yours truly. Okay.
Thank you. Do we have any apologies for absence?
No.
Okay. Do we have receipt of proxies? Mr. Chairman, we have 7 proxies here. We have, on behalf of Mosin Jamaica Limited, in favor of Mr. Paul Scott or Mrs. Melanie Sobrati. We have a proxy from the Coconut Industry Board in favor of Mr. Christopher Gentles or Mr. Nicholas Jones. Our third proxy is Spacey Group Limited
in favor of Mr. Paul Scott or Mrs. Melanie Subrati. Number 4 is PGF JCSD Trustee Services Account 76579-02 in favor of Mr. Gary Vaughan White. There's Scotia Investments Jamaica Limited account numbers 6555 442 831 2884 6582 and 3119 in favor of Mr. Gary Vaughan White. There's Scotia Jamaica Life Insurance Company for Scotia Bridge Retirement Scheme in favor of Mr. Gary Vaughan White. And seventh and final is DB&G Pension Fund / Scotia Investments Jamaica Limited Pension Fund, also in favor of Mr. Gary Vaughan White. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. I would like to put a motion to the floor in order for the director's report, which is on page 2, to be taken as read. Could I? Thank you. Have a second? Thank you very much. Okay, we will therefore take the director's report as read. Mr. Richard Pandui, Group CEO, could you give an update on the company, please?
Chairman, I feel like at a cricket match and I get called to the wicket earlier than expected. So Chairman P.B. Scott, Board of Directors, shareholders, staff members, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. It's actually a delight to be here this morning. I was actually kind of dressed this morning. It's unusual to do this, and my shoes is dry rotten because it hasn't been used in 2 years, but anyway, so it go. Yeah, thank you for joining us today for our annual general meeting, which has been done in both a physical and virtual participation format to allow for a wider inclusion of our stakeholder community. And also this is a way, as you grow as a company, you have to create the opportunity for all our shareholders to participate in whatever format. But it's good to physically see some familiar faces. I'm delighted that we can be in the same space again. So I'd like to start by thanking you for your support over the years. This has been especially important in the last 12 months, which can be best described by Charles Dickens. It was the best of times, it was the worst of times. The results of 2021, regardless of external events, and a one-off internal traumatic incident, the fire, were solid despite not having the positive growth trajectory of previous years. I want to remind you, shareholders, that in 2020, we did experience a one-off gain of 762 million Jamaican dollars on the sale of a property. So one should consider this when comparing the underlying business performance. We also had a massive fire in October 2021, which essentially burned our fourth quarter revenue and profit. And on top of that, our costs skyrocketed as we had to incur major expenses in warehousing, distribution, and expediting shipments of replacement goods to ensure business continuity and to ensure that our customers and consumers were not in a panic about food supply. Our profit margin also took a hit because we decided to absorb rather than pass through to business and consumers some of the unprecedented global price increases. Management felt that in 2021, the world was at peak food inflation and prices would have begun trending down in the new year in line with the reduced pandemic cases. Well, nobody never told management that a war was about to start in Ukraine. So interestingly, here we are in 2022, and management is again of the view that we are at peak inflation and we expect a downward trend in commodity and energy costs going forward. So if anyone out there has any information that's different, please tell me. In terms of performance, we have had to accept that our world has changed. And what were aberrations before are now part of our everyday reality and are no longer suitable excuses for not delivering value. This is the reality of doing business today. For the next few minutes, I want to talk to you about how we have been creating value and how we intend to continue to do so. Now, we have been super transparent about our strategic plans. I have publicly stated over the past 7 years that our ambition is to create a regional platform which is designed to reduce logistics complexity, create a scale that justifies next-level investments, become a more attractive company to best-in-class talent, and be a partner of choice for great brands. Over the recent years, Seprod has undertaken some major initiatives. We built a state-of-the-art milling facility. We bought the Nestle factory and consolidated the 2 dairy operations. We bought the Suppligent and Betty brands globally. We bought basic commodity food and pharmaceutical distribution business, and that acquisition doubled Seprod's revenue base. And now we have done the biggest move yet. We acquired Ace Bryant and Sons, which again doubles the revenue base and gives us critical footprint in Barbados, Guyana, and Trinidad and Tobago. In short, we have laid a platform that makes this group one of the region's most exciting value-creating entities. I want to share with you some of the underlying drivers that have underpinned our growth strategy. So we'll start talking about innovation. Now, innovation is not to be confused with line extensions. We're intent on working collaboratively with various stakeholders to bring new products, new practices, and new consumer experience to our market. Focusing on product innovation requires significant investment in research and development. We'll continue the process of moving from commodity to brand to create long-term value. Our latest being our entry in the snack category, utilizing two of our key commodity products, oil and corn, to produce an amazing brand such as Cheese Zulu and King Puffs. I hope you have tried. If you haven't, please do. Our innovations will be scaled to target the region and diaspora base. And very importantly, we must be looking to create products that can cross over to non-Caribbean consumers. An example of this is sorrel. The drink is almost exclusively consumed at Christmas in the Caribbean, but it's a staple beverage in many Latin American countries throughout the year, and is referred to as Flor de Jamaica, translated to mean flower of Jamaica. We worked with local flavor companies to use local sorrel to produce the delight Flor de Jamaica, to target a Latin America diaspora, which is almost 8 times the size of the Caribbean diaspora. In fact, the chairman and I had the distinct pleasure of being in Canada for the last week or so, where we look at the market. It's just truly exciting what we can do there. The other pillar is export. Our export has grown from less than 2% of the total manufacturing base to 15% over the last 4 years, actually. There was a slowdown in the rate of growth in 2021. We grew, but the rate of growth was slower due to restrictions in many markets. With the reopening of countries, we expect a trajectory of doubling our export volume every 3 years, double every 3 years. This is not a stretch target. This is our base expectation that is comprised of our own brand and brands that we co-manufacture for other companies. It's important to note that business to business, commonly referred to as B2B, is growing as we're increasingly becoming an important supply partner to many manufacturers in the region. In fact, several manufacturers in this region stayed afloat because we were able to supply when they couldn't get supply from Brazil and everywhere else. Our team, based in the Dominican Republic, has been working to enter the Central American and other Hispanic markets. And I'm pleased to announce that we'll start shipping products during October this year, next month, to new countries such as Guatemala. I hope our team in Dominican will be safe. They have a Hurricane Fiona passing over today. Next pillar is technology implementation. That C word, which we're not calling out, over the last few years, has forced our society to recognize how much we're lagging in the implementation of technology in our everyday life. In many ways, our companies are a microcosm of society. We mistakenly believe that using a lot of manual labor was more cost-effective than spending a lot of upfront capital to implement technology. Nothing is further from the truth. Our country's low productivity from all this manual intervention creates expensive unit costs of production. It lowers output and creates huge wastage. I mean, ask our farmers, more than 30% of the crops in this country are lost due to the lack of post-harvest technology. If we're going to feed our region, if we're going to grow our exports, and to be a co-manufacturer of choice for global players, then we have to be able to produce competitively. We have gaps in this regard, and we're working hard to close them. But it's a massive paradigm shift for society, and by extension, a company that is shifting gear from local to regional and beyond. Within the Seprod group, we're moving with speed to make technology a key element in our value proposition. This will also ensure that we raise the quality of people we employ and move up the people value chain, because it's the interface between users and technology that will drive the value creation. Next pillar is people. The development of our people, ensuring that we have the right people with the right experience and the right roles at all levels of the company, are critical to realizing our ambitions. This probably is one of the most difficult pillars. We have accepted that to drive our company forward, we need to have best-in-class human resources. I did not say the best Jamaican or the best Trinidadian resource. I said best in class, meaning we need to populate our teams with persons from wherever around the globe we can source them. Even as we onboard these external talents, we have an obligation to train our Caribbean people. It is time that we accept that as a country and a region, we cannot stop our best and brightest from leaving. However, we need to mitigate this by having an immigration policy to ensure the replacement of human capacity and capability. You, our shareholders, you have shown unwavering commitment to our vision, and you have been well rewarded. Over the last 7 years, your share price has moved from $13.50 to $69. A total of $5.97 billion has been paid out in dividends. $billion. In the worst of times, when it would have been easier to reduce our delayed dividends, your board of directors, your chairman, chose not to. While we are pleased with our progress, we are not at our destination, not by a long shot. All of us know our chairman, P.B. Scott, is driven to create value, and it is truly a privilege to be a part of his team. In summary, the Seprod Group is in a good place. We have made meaningful progress in our transition from a local to a regional player. Over the next 12 to 18 months, the focus will be on actualizing growth and value via the drivers I outlined earlier. Thank you for your time, and I wish everyone good health and prosperity, and may Seprod's contribution to your portfolio grow magnificently. Respect.
Thank you, Richard. That was very exciting to be a shareholder in Seprod. And Seprod is, as he said, a work in progress, and we're working towards a fairly well-defined destination, but we're on a journey, and it's an exciting journey, and it's a privilege for me to be working with highly talented individuals here and throughout the Caribbean, led by Richard, on that journey. So thank you, Richard, for that. At this time, we're going to ask Mr. Paul Williams of Pricewaterhouse to read the auditor's report. This will take some time, and we appreciate your patience. Next year, we will ensure, if it's still there and the Companies Act has not been amended, that we will have some sort of entertainment that could be done while he's reading. Thank you. Mr. Williams.
Consolidated and standalone financial statement comprise the consolidated statement of financial position as of 31st December 2021, the consolidated statement of comprehensive income for the year then ended, the consolidated statement of changes in equity for the year then ended, the consolidated statement of cash flow for the year then ended, the company statement of financial position as of 31st December 2021, the company statement of comprehensive income for the year then ended, the company statement of changes in equity for the year then ended, the company statement of cash flow for the year then ended, and the notes to the financial statement, which include significant accounting policies and other explanatory information. Basis for opinion. We conducted our audit in accordance with International Standard on Auditing, ISAs. Our responsibilities under those standards are further described in the auditor's responsibilities for audit of the consolidated and standalone financial section of our report. We believe that the audit evidence we have obtained is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. Independence. We're independent of the group in accordance with International Code of Ethics for Professional Accountants, including International Independence Standard issued by the International Ethics Standard Board of Accountants, IESBA code. We have fulfilled our other ethical responsibilities in accordance with the said code. Our audit approach. As part of designing our audit, we determine the materiality and assess the risk of material misstatement in the consolidated and standalone financial statement. In particular, we consider where management made subjective judgments, for example, in respect of significant accounting estimates that involve making assumptions and considering future events that are inherently uncertain. As in all of our audits, we also address the risks of management override of internal controls, including, among other matters, consideration of whether there was evidence of bias that represented a risk of material misstatement due to fraud. How we tailor our group audit scope. We tailor the scope of our audit in accordance to perform sufficient work to enable us to provide an opinion on the consolidated financial statement as a whole, taking into account the structure of the group, the accounting processes and controls, and the industries in which the group operates. The group consists of the company and 14 other legal entities located in Jamaica, St. Lucia, Barbados, Trinidad and Tobago, and the Dominican Republic, each of which is considered as component for the audit scoping purposes. The accounting records of 9 of the legal entities are maintained in the group head office. The remaining 6 entities' accounting records are kept in other offices in Jamaica. All entities within the group are audited by PwC Jamaica, and full scope audits were performed for all components. Key audit matters. Key audit matters are those matters that, in our professional judgment, were most significant in our audits of the consolidated and standalone financial statement of the current period. These matters were addressed in the context of audit of the consolidated and standalone financial statement as a whole, and informing our opinion thereon, and we do not provide a separate opinion on these matters. The first key audit matter relates to valuation of unquoted equities, the group and the company. Refer to notes 2H, 4 and 17 of the consolidated and standalone financial statement for disclosure of the related accounting policies, judgments, and estimates. Unquoted equities included within the investment of the consolidated and standalone financial position total $833 million as of 31st December 2021 for both the group and the company, which represents 1.77% and 2.12% of the total assets respectively. The unquoted equities, securities related to an investment in an affiliated company over which Seprod does not exercise significant influence. These securities are not quoted in an active market. The fair value of these securities is determined using a market valuation based on discounted future cash flows. We focus on this area because of the magnitude of the balance, the complexity of the valuation model used, and the use of management determined assumptions, including challenges involved in determining the impact of COVID-19 on those assumptions. The key assumptions were assessed by management as being investee future cash flow, terminal growth rates, discount rates, and market participation minority discount. Management used an independent valuation expert to assess in the valuation process. We addressed this key audit matter with the assistance of our own valuation expert involved in the following procedures, among others. We update our understanding and evaluated management future cash flow forecasts and the process by which they were determined, including testing the underlying calculations and comparing them to the latest board-approved budget of the investee. We also compare prior year management budgets to actual results of the investee to evaluate accuracy of management forecast process. We also test this management key assumption, including the impact of COVID-19 as follows. We compare forecast long-term growth rate to historical results and economic and industrial forecasts. We also evaluated management assumption concerning the selective growth rates, terminal growth rate, discount rate, and market participation minority discount by reference to relevant industry data. We compare the key assumptions to externally derived data where available, including market expectation of investment return, projected economic growth, and interest rate, and the sensitive and sensitized management plan growth rate in the cash flow and changes in discount rate. Based on the results of the procedures performed, management valuation of unquoted equities securities was, in our view, not unreasonable. The second key audit matter referred to revaluation of land and building, both for the company and the group. Referred to notes 2E, 4, and 14 of the consolidated and standalone financial statement for disclosure of related accounting policies, judgment, and estimates. Land and building included within property, plant, and equipment on the consolidated and standalone statement of financial position total 8.518 million and 2.76 million as of 31st December 2021, representing 18.16% and 7.06% of the total assets of the group and the company, respectively. The determination of fair value of land and building requires significant judgment, and as such was an area of focus for the audit. Management, through an independent valuation expert, used the income capitalization approach to determine the fair value of the land and buildings. This method takes into account consideration of a number of factors that require estimation and judgment. The key factors include estimation of rental income, determination of capitalization factor, and determination of the discount rate. Our approach to addressing this matter with the assistance of our own valuation expert involved the following procedures, among others. We updated our understanding of the valuation process and obtained information on significant development within the industry. We also assessed the competence and objectivity of management property valuator in order to determine whether they are appropriately qualified and whether there are any affiliation to the group. We also assessed the appropriateness of the valuation methodology used in order to evaluate whether it was suitable for determining market value in accordance with financial reporting framework. We also evaluated management estimate. Thanks very much. We also evaluated management estimates of rental income by comparing to yields of similar properties located in the same area. We also assessed the capitalization factor by benchmarking the assumption used to relevant market evidence, which include performing comparison to similar properties located in the same area. We also assessed the reasonableness of the discount rate by reference to relevant industry data. Based on the procedures performed, management valuation of land and building was, in our view, not unreasonable. Other information. Management is responsible for other information. The other information comprises the annual report, but does not include the consolidated and standalone statement and our audit report thereon, which is expected to be made available to us after the date of our audit report. Our opinion on the consolidated and standalone financial statement does not cover the other information and will not express any form of assurance conclusion thereon. In connection with our audit of the consolidated and standalone financial statement, Our responsibility is to read the other information, identify above, and when it becomes available, in doing so, consider whether the other information is materially inconsistent with the consolidated and standalone financial statement, or our knowledge obtained in the audit or otherwise appear to be materially misstated. When you read the annual report, if we conclude that there is a material misstatement therein, we are required to communicate the matter to those charged with governance. Responsibilities of management and those charged with governance for the consolidated and standalone financial statement. Management is responsible for the preparation of the consolidated and standalone financial statement that give a true and fair view in accordance with IFRS and with the requirement of the Jamaican Companies Act, and for such internal control as management determine is necessary to enable the preparation of the consolidated and standalone financial statement that are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error. In preparing the consolidated and standalone financial statement, management is responsible for assessing the group and the company's ability to continue as a going concern, disclosing as applicable matters relating to going concern, and using the going concern basis of accounting unless management either intend to liquidate the group or the company or to cease operation or has no realistic alternative but to do so. Those charged with governance are responsible for overseeing the group and company's financial reporting process. Auditors' responsibility for the audit of the consolidated and standalone financial statement. Our objectives are to obtain reasonable assurance about whether the consolidated and standalone financial statement as a whole are free from material misstatement, whether due to fraud or error, and to issue an audit report that includes our opinion. Reasonable assurance is a high level of assurance, but is not a guarantee that an audit conducted in accordance with ISA will always detect a material misstatement when it exists. Misstatement can arise from fraud or error and are considered material if individually or in aggregate they could reasonably be expected to influence the economic decision of a user taken on the basis of those consolidated and standalone financial statements. As part of an audit in accordance with ISA, we exercise professional judgment and maintain professional skepticism throughout the audit. We also identify and assess the risks of material misstatement of the consolidated and standalone financial statement, whether due to fraud or error. Design and perform audit procedures responsive to those risks and obtain audit evidence that is sufficient and appropriate to provide a basis for our opinion. The risk of not detecting a material misstatement resulting from fraud is higher than one resulting from error, as fraud may involve collusion, forgery, intentional omission, misrepresentation, or the override of controls. Obtain an understanding of the internal control relevant to the audit in order to design our audit procedures that are appropriate in the circumstances, but not for the purpose of expressing an opinion on the effectiveness of the group and the company's internal control. Evaluate the appropriateness of accounting policies used and the reasonableness of accounting estimates that related to disclosure made by management. Conclude on the appropriateness of management use of the going concern basis of accounting, and based on the audit evidence obtained, whether a material uncertainty exists related to events or conditions that may be significant doubt on the group and the company's ability to continue as a going concern. If we conclude that the material uncertainty exists, we are required to draw to the attention in the audit report related disclosure in the consolidated and standalone financial statement, or in such disclosure are inadequate, to modify our opinion. Our conclusions are based on the audit evidence obtained up to the date of our audit report. However, future events or conditions may cause the group or the company to cease to continue as a going concern. Evaluate the overall presentation, structure, and content of the consolidated and standalone financial statement, including the disclosure, and whether the consolidated and standalone financial statement represent the underlying transaction and event in a manner that achieves fair presentation. Obtain sufficient appropriate audit evidence regarding the financial information of the entities or the business activities within the group to express an opinion on the consolidated financial statement. We are responsible for the direction, supervision, and performance of the group audit. We remain solely responsible for our audit opinion. We communicate with those charged with governance regarding, among other matters, the planned scope and timing of the audit and significant audit findings, including any significant deficiencies in internal control that we identified during our audit. We also provide those charged with governance with a statement that we have complied with the relevant ethical requirement regarding independence and to communicate with them all relationship and other matters that may reasonably be thought to bear on our independence, and where applicable, action taken to eliminate threat or safeguard apply. From the matters communicated with those charged with governance, we determine those matters that we are most significant in the audit of the consolidated and standalone financial statement of the current period and are therefore key audit matters. We describe these matters in our audit report unless law or regulation precludes public disclosures about the matter, or when extremely rare circumstances, we determine that a matter should not be communicated in a report because of adverse consequences of doing so would reasonably be expected to outweigh the public interest benefit of such communication. Report and other legal and regulatory requirements. As required by the Jamaican Companies Act, we have obtained all the information and explanation which, to the best of our knowledge and belief, were necessary for the purpose of our audit. In our opinion, proper accounting records have been kept so far as appear from our examination of those records, and the accompanying consolidated and standalone financial statement are in agreement therewith, and give the information required by the Jamaican Companies Act in a manner so required. Engaging partner on the audit resulting in this independent audit report is Paul Williams, signed by PricewaterhouseCoopers Chartered Accountant, Kingston, Jamaica, on the 6th of May, 2022. Thank you, Chair.
Wow, Paul Williams, thank you very much. To all those people watching online, I hope you're waking up. That is 20 minutes we'll never get back in life. And it's a real shame that we've gone like four years, and neither the Stock Exchange or the PSOJ or the Chamber of Commerce or anyone is not taking this on as a serious thing to get amended, because it is a complete waste of everybody's time. And it is also, quite frankly, rather insulting to our shareholders to believe that they can't read Pricewaterhouse's letter that we provide every year in the most transparent way. So I hope going forward that we won't have to do that, but every single year we have to make this process. Okay, now that we have had the report is now open for discussion. Do we have any questions from the floor? I believe we have some online, but let's do the floor first. Sir, can you announce your name and your question, please? Yes, sir, your question?
Oh, okay. I thought we were going to bring up my question. Am I okay?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, our auditor spoke about their
Sir, what's your name?
Christopher Burrow.
Okay, Mr.
Our auditor spoke about their thoroughness of examining different companies, active, inactive, or those going inactive, etc. I disagree with him. I've had issue with one. I can't get through to either Mr. Scott or Mr. Panjui because your circle of secretary mercenaries make sure we can't get through to you. very difficult to do business with you that way.
Sorry, you're saying that
They're
you've been
just-
trying to call us and you haven't
Yes,
been able to
yes,
get
and
through. Okay.
getting through to you is totally impossible.
Right.
Your circle keeps us out.
Okay.
So, Mr. Panjui spoke about communicating with him. Impossible.
Okay. Well, why don't you wait afterwards? and
We
we'll
will
talk to you.
discuss it after the meeting, Mr. Scott.
Certainly.
Not a problem. But since the auditors claim to be so thorough, etc., I thought they would have found this fault years ago.
The what, sorry?
The matter of which I'm speaking, I thought that would have come up years ago. They speak of the thoroughness of examining accounts. If you have a company that is phasing out of business or being put on the back burner for whatever reason, I thought those accounts, it would be a good matter to clean up those accounts and have them examined and closed off properly. Dealing with it from outside is frustrating. And not being able to, quote unquote, communicate with anybody in the hierarchy of the company to look into it for us is even more frustrating. So, sorry, Mr. Panjui, you don't make it to that one.
Can I respond to you? Can you call
Sure.
my name? So first of all, we don't stay in the office. I mean, we're moving around. That's what we do. We're on the ground. Your management is not a management to be in the office. We have done a lot of acquisitions lately. This is my first weekend in Jamaica in a month. And secondly, we have launched, more important, we have launched our new website. If you go on your website this morning, there are opportunities to speak directly to us, communicate directly to us. So we're using the technology because nobody really sits in the office
I've been
anymore.
trying for over 2 years.
No, well, you're not trying hard enough.
Yeah, I don't believe you.
But
Okay, well, thank you very much for your question. With full due respect, if you email or whatever, you will get a response from any one of us.
We will, I hope so.
Thank
We'll
you.
look into that. Anyway,
Okay.
so for the auditors, since that is under the financial statement, I do find fault with some of what they have done and the claimed thoroughness of dealing with their accounts. It's
Okay.
not there.
Thank you for your statement there. Next question. Yes, sir. Yes, please, come to the mic. Yes, please. Your question.
Mr. Chair, good morning. Good morning to your members of the board
Good morning.
and employees, fellow shareholders, morning.
Good morning.
Mr. Chair, I have 3 observations I would like to share with us before I ask my question. So with your permission, sir, can I go ahead with those
Please.
observations before? First of all, I would like to thank the Lord for bringing us safely to this meeting today, and that during our discussion, He will be with us, and that we will appreciate each other's
Or she will be
opinion.
with us. But carry on, please.
Mr. Chair, the management and discussion and analysis was fairly good presentation, and I would like to thank Mr. CEO and his staff for putting this together. Mr. Chair, I have not seen any management, any evaluation of the board. And this is important, that we as shareholders know that you are being evaluated as a board. So for the next meeting, sir, I would like to see an evaluation being done. Not necessarily the evaluation, but in writing that this was done. Mr. Chair, my first question on page 49. Through you to the auditor, sir. Why is this magnitude of balance and management determined assumptions in arriving at the fair value of securities? Why?
Sorry,
The auditor.
which, this is in the audit letter that you're
Page
referring to?
49.
Yes.
The audit comments.
And what's the question?
The question is, why is this magnitude of balance and management determined assumptions in arriving at the fair value of the securities? Why?
Okay, well, you directed the question to the auditors, but if I
Why
may-
is the magnitude
but,
of balance
thank you.
and management determined assumptions in arriving at the fair value of the securities?
Excuse me.
Right, so I'm trying to answer here. So you directed the question to the auditors, but I mean, I think I can take it here.
these investments were valued by independent qualified professional valuers, and it's based on the underlying cash flows of the investee. So the valuer looks at the future cash flows from the investment and discounts at the current to come with the current value. Right? And an independent professional value looks at it, and the auditor has also looked at it, and they found it to be okay.
Mr. Chair,
Yep.
I will have to talk to you about this after the meeting. I won't
Okay.
keep up the meeting for that. Turn me to page 54. Mr. Chair, in 2020, you had total revenue, and I say total, all the money is coming in to you, was $40,255,789. And the expenses was $37,383,873 million.
I don't think so. I think you're
Which
reading
gave
it
you a
wrong.
profit of $2.9 billion. Mr. Chair, for every dollar of revenue earned in 2020, you spent 93 cents, and you got a profit of 7 cents. In 2021, you had total revenue of $45.4 billion. And that revenue earned cost you $43.5 billion, which gave you a net reduction of $1.993 billion. For every dollar of revenue earned in 2021, it cost you 96 cents, and the profit was 4 cents out of every dollar. What is disastrous, Mr. Chair,
Sorry?
and understandable, was the incremental earnings. You earned total revenue of $5.2 billion incrementally. That is, in 2021, when you reach the 2020 figures, the amount that you got after that was $5.2 billion. And that $5.2 billion cost you $6.1 billion.
Okay, some of your numbers are not the numbers I'm looking at, but what's the point you're trying to make?
What was the reason for this reduction in profit and incremental earnings?
Yeah.
Why?
Well, it's as the CEO mentioned in the last year, we've seen unprecedented increases in input prices because of the world supply chain issues and commodity prices increasing tremendously. And it's been very, very difficult to pass those prices on to the customers and consumers, and we have not been able to. And as a result of that, our margins have been highly compromised. In addition to that, in October, we had an event that I hope will be a once-in-a-lifetime event, because I don't think any one of us on this table or as an executive in this room wants to go through it again, where our main distribution warehouse burned down. And when I say burned down, it was there at 1 o'clock, and by midnight it was no longer there, nor was any of our stock, nor was the forklifts, nor was anything. And we had to keep the business going, and it could have been much worse. And I'm very grateful to he or she up in the sky, as you referred to at the beginning, whether they exist or they don't exist. I'm very grateful for the hard work and the talent that the executives at Seprod put in to ensure that we were even profitable in that year. It is absolutely incredible what the executives at Facey Commodity and at Seprod did to ensure that our principals still were represented on the shelves, our customers could still get their products, our factories could still run and sell and put the product somewhere. And any misunderstanding of the impediments we faced in that month just shows absolute ignorance to the reality of the difficulties we faced. And as a shareholder, I'm extraordinarily grateful for the hard work, the diligence, and the commitment. And I'm privileged to everyday work with an extraordinary team. So, sir, I am grateful for those profits, but I don't take them lightly because they don't grow on trees. They come from the hard work of 2,500 people who work every day at Seprod. And as a shareholder, myself, perhaps you included, I'm very grateful to the hard work they had. And whether they made 3 cents on a dollar, 2 cents, the fact they even made a cent is quite incredible. So thank you. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, Damien. Thank you, the team. They did an incredible job.
Mr. Chair, total revenue earned from manufacturer was reduced by $5 billion, or 17.7%. Why did this take place?
Okay, I'm respectfully answering your questions, but I've just described something that you should really look at the newsreels of what happened on October 9th. I don't think you comprehend the logistics challenges, the supply chain challenges, and what happens when you are sitting there and you see everything that you are working through burning down right in front of you. So, yes, our sales, your observations may be correct, maybe not. I'm not even checking. But at the end of the day, we have a strategy. We're going to grow our platform. We're going to develop our talent. And what I can tell you from that experience is that while our inventories and everything was destroyed, that's not Seprod. Seprod is the talent that exists within the organization. And that came right to the surface. So you can observe numbers, but the relevance, I'd like to understand what is the question, the underlying question you're asking.
But Chairman, if I could, I want to say something also. So, Mr. Staples, with all due respect, so a lot of societies were shut down last year, right? For example, I mean, including our own in many ways, we had curfews, etc. So obviously, demand fell, and therefore we adjusted. Production had to be adjusted for that. Let's take something like the biscuit factory. It fell 50%, the production, because schools are out. I mean, I'm a little bit surprised. I mean, schools are out. The biscuit factory fell 50%. Exports to Trinidad was shut down, and a lot of the Caribbean islands, exports fell. We took a decision to ensure that we had supply in our market, and therefore we cut back on export. So I'm hearing the question, but I'm genuinely confused because the world was in a state of constriction during this period. Yeah. No, in 2022, as societies open up, you'll feel a resurgence. But, I caution you as you look at these results that you don't look at it as a point in time, win the business for the long run. We're confident we'll put a base in place. We're confident we'll deliver, but I'm telling you, the world will, I'm not too sure what I'm all right, but I'm a little bit surprised with some of the questions because the world was in a state of just tight constriction. We all experienced it, and therefore that's a part of the reality. Our objective, though, we kept our production going, we kept our staff employed, because we believe that we did not react to just a point in time. We're in this for the long term. We're creating value for the long run. We're going to be a stakeholder that will be an employer of choice for people, a partner of choice for our partners, and we just see it as an aberration, as I said before, and we're going to move forward.
Yeah.
Lastly, Mr. Chair.
Okay.
Lastly.
Last one.
The price of hay remains stable.
Sorry, the price of what?
Hay, Hay,
okay,
remains stable versus the price of other products used for feeding livestock. Why are we not using more of this to feed our livestock?
Well, we try and grow as much hay as possible. The growth of hay, what you just stated, is another example of a statement in a complete vacuum. Hay grows when the sun shines and the rain falls, right? The weather patterns determine how much hay you can grow, and we have quite a considerable amount of land, and we attempt to grow as much hay as possible, but it's not really possible to grow as much hay as we require to substitute the requirements for feed for the cattle. And that's just the reality. Thank you very much, Mr. Staples. Do we have another questions from the floor? Yes, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Nicola Borley.
Good morning.
I'd like to first of all, I'd like to commend you on your resilience following not only, as you say, your COVID, the Ukraine war, and the fire, but I think I heard Mr. Pandui early in the COVID crisis and how he staked out what he was planning and had implemented for Seprod. And on the basis of that, I actually bought more shares. So I'm in your corner. However, I'd just like to ask you two questions. What changes or what lessons have you learned or changes you've made as a result of the fire? You don't expect another fire, but that's something that can happen at any time. I'm sure you have enough safety precautions and those kinds of things, but nonetheless.
It's an extraordinarily good question and very, very important, because there's always a balance between scale, and scale comes from when you build a 300,000 square foot warehouse and you put everything in one place, and you can move 1 million boxes every month at the lowest cost per box movement, and the risk of the 300,000 square foot warehouse burning down, right? Because then that puts you in a very vulnerable position. So that is something that we've had to really take a hard look at, because we never want to be put in the same position again. We have invested very heavily in fire safety. Not that the previous warehouse did not have facilities, it certainly did. But we have made sure that the new warehouse is going to be first, the very, very best in fire safety. The other thing that's an important component in ensuring that that you can balance that, getting the scale, because you want the scale, but with the risk, is that the new warehouse that we are just completing now, we basically have divided it into 3 components with firewalls between the 3, so it's not all in one section. The other item that's a key driver as well is storage, right? So there are certain items that should not be stored with other items, right?
Okay.
And we are designing what we store, where we store it, in sections to manage that risk as well. You know, I really hope that it is a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I would not want that on anyone else. It's very stressful on the organization. It's mentally stressful just to look at something that so much work has gone into over decades just disappear in a few hours. But I think what came out of that fire is not the destruction of a physical warehouse, but the resilience of the organization, and what was done in the following 3 weeks to ensure that we did not have the disruption that possibly could have occurred. It is true, our last quarter, that it was evaporated, as Richard very articulately described. but and we had significant other costs that we are still paying right now, with regard to paying for multiple warehouses, and
Right.
shipping and logistics between warehouses, and
You would have had significant increased costs just trying to keep
massively
afloat,
increased
so to
costs. Because
speak.
you have to remember, not only did we, under normal circumstances, it would have been extraordinarily challenging to get the business and the stock back, but we lost our warehouse at the height of the supply chain crisis,
Yes.
where you just couldn't get containers. So even if you put in an order with your suppliers and said, I need to replace it,
You're not getting it
they
now.
couldn't get it. So it was a phenomenal event in terms of building the organization spirit, I think, or certainly for me to observe under the leadership of Richard, the reorganization of Seprod, and Patrick's here as well. You know, he was absolutely integral to Facey getting the trucks back on the road the following week. And one of the things that was very uplifting was that there were a lot of people in Jamaica, even competitors, you know, that reached out and wanted to help. And it feels good to be in a community where people wanted to help. A lot of people wanted to help, and we're very grateful for those that reached out and offered their help, and those that actually helped. Thank you to everyone who contributed to us getting back on our feet. It's true that the results last year were not as good as the year before, but the year before did have a one-off gain for the sale of a building. If you subtract that from the results, they're
700 million.
almost flat. And then if you put in context the fact that we had those challenges, plus the supply chain challenges and the margin squeezing, last year's results, I believe, were very satisfactory, at least from my perspective.
Yeah, understood.
Chairman,
Thanks.
just in terms of warehousing, additional warehousing and distribution costs, post-fire, annualized, there is over $600 million in additional costs.
Yeah.
I'm truly flabbergasted that, you know, that people don't realize just what it meant in terms of how we had to change business. And on top of that, you know, Seprod don't operate in isolation. We see ourselves as leaders in the space. You know, we work with our Jamaica as a society has not experienced the supply chain challenges that many countries, even developed countries, have experienced. I think that's just kudos to the manufacturing and distribution sector in Jamaica. We have kept our supply going in this country. We're reading about what's happening in Australia and the US, etc. But Jamaica as a society has not experienced that. I think a lot of people sit down and don't factor in what it takes to do that.
Yeah.
It meant we had $1 billion in working capital for inventory. That same amount of goods is now $2.2 billion. You know, those are the kind of factors that people have to consider. So, you know, this is a shout out to all the manufacturers and distributors. I think we have done really well to keep our society going in a good way during this period.
And I believe you said that you also restrained yourself from passing on a lot of the costs to the consumer as well.
That is where the margin station is.
Yeah.
I mean, we operate on the basis that, you know, Seprod is a part of the fabric of Jamaica. And we have to have a relationship, not just with our shareholders, but with our consumers in our country, right? At the end of the day, as a people, we have to help each other to get through this difficulty. And the board took a decision to not pass on, not to do replacement costing at that point last year, because we believe that we'll get through this. And at some point, our consumers have to survive. Many people are without a job. Many people are struggling. It's our duty in our society to be a part of society in a positive way. It's not just about delivering shareholder profits, it's about delivering value for our society.
Well, thank you for that.
Thank you.
Sorry.
My other...
So, okay, thank you very much. Yes.
My other question, with the acquisition of Bryden & Sons, I believe you said you expect your revenue base to be doubled.
Yes.
Would it be different products, or is it more of a regional reach, or a combination
Yeah,
of?
that's an interesting question. So AS Bryden's is a distribution business that spans Barbados, Guyana, Trinidad. And interestingly enough, they have the Eve brand in Trinidad. The Eve brand is a leading brand in Trinidad, and we have that in Jamaica. So they sell similar products to what we sell. They're the Mondelez distributor in Trinidad. We're the Mondelez distributor in Jamaica.
Synergies.
So in addition to that, we also share a common IT software system, etc., funny enough, very strangely. And we do similar things. We have a similar culture, similar outlook. We're very principle-orientated with regard to managing distribution businesses. And so we're very, very happy to be able to welcome A.S. Bridens into the Seprod group.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir.
Wesley Thomas.
Yes.
Good morning, everybody. Morning. This is to the CEO. You had mentioned that your brightest talents have migrated in your speech. What have Seprod done to close that gap so that we can continue to have profits? No?
I was referring to in our society as general, it's a topic.
It's in general?
Yeah, in general.
Okay.
I mean, it's something that our chairman has been talking about for the last couple of years. The fact remains that it's going to continue to be attractive for people to leave for a number of reasons, not just around compensation, but also around issues of security, etc. I believe that, to move forward, if you're going to be a true regional player and beyond, you have to have the best talent. And we must be able to attract those into our country as a replacement. We also have to actively put a plan in place where we can train our young talent to be the next leaders, etc. We have had to, I think, costs of employment will go up in Jamaica just because you have to compete in a global space. I mean, everybody talk about teachers. The New York borough alone, 30% of the teachers left because they were not vaccinated, right? So they had to fill that. A truck driver, that person driving a container truck is over $100,000 per year now. Those are life-changing compensation. So we have to accept that is our reality. We're a migratory population, and accept that we have to replace it with persons externally. So within the Seprod group, we have been actively looking for talent externally. Well, I mean, obviously internally also, but I mean, we are doing what it takes to move us to the next level. Because if you don't have the best people in place, then no amount of strategy, no amount of equipment investment is going to create the value. So, it's for us, it's less about arguing about how we can make the people stay in Jamaica and more about people will leave.
Yes.
How do we ensure that we have a continuity in the skill set of our people that are here?
I think we have to accept, the birth rate in Jamaica has halved since 1971.
Yeah, it's gone down.
And in addition to that, there's over 20,000 migrants moving to the United States every single year. And if that continues and you don't replace that capacity, then your productive capacity in society is going to shrink.
It will.
Now, there are two ways you can replace that, and they're not mutually exclusive. They can be done in parallel. You can invest in training, etc. But the reality is we're looking at right now at a very low unemployment rate as it stands, or we can look to have a migration policy to Jamaica and an immigration policy and bring talent to the country. The CEO just mentioned we were in Canada last week, and one of the interesting things about Canada, when you get into the airport, they have ads from banks welcoming migrants to open accounts, and they are actively trying to get 500,000 immigrants a year into the country. 500,000 over a population of 40 million is quite considerable. If you were to use the same relative percentage on the Jamaican population, you'd be talking about 40,000 or so migrants a year into Jamaica. I think it's something that is, if we're serious about economic growth in Jamaica, it's something that we have to consider seriously.
I think so too.
But I just want to say something, doing. I mean, it's, we're here, Jamaican Shores today, but the company that you are an owner in is more than just a Jamaican company now. So a Jamaican base. But we are a regional player. We've always said that our domestic space is the CARICOM market. And one of the most exciting thing about the Brighton acquisition is about the great talent of people that came into the organization, you know.
Okay.
And we're very pleased because we believe that when we speak about our Caribbean talent, you know, welcome our new members to our family and the skill set they bring to the organization. So you know, together we'll be stronger.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, are there any other questions from the floor before we go to the online questions? So you already asked some questions. If you have a particular question that's definitive, you can ask it now.
Just one question. Mr. Chair, why did the fair value through other comprehensive income and long-term receivables at fair value through profit and loss result in this reduction in cash and bank balances? That's on page 75. Why did the fair value through other comprehensive income and long-term receivables at fair value through profit and loss result in this reduction in cash and bank balances? Why?
I don't know if the two are directly correlated, but you know what you should do if you have really detailed accounting questions, write them down, and we're happy to work through them and answer them. Thank you very much. Let's move to the online questions.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, I try to take some of these just to say that they'll all be answered on our webpage, but in the interest of time, let me start with a question from Dwight Jackson, who is asking, what is Seprod doing to cushion the company in the event of a recession?
What is Seprod?
What is Seprod doing to cushion the company in the event of a recession?
To prepare the company in the event of a recession.
Right.
Yeah, this is a very interesting question. Any company that's operated successfully in the last 40 years in Jamaica has essentially the mindset of operating within recessionary or adverse economic conditions. It's only in the last few years where the world has started to change. I think the skills and the level of commitment that we have to cash flow forecasting and planning, etc., that were formed essentially in rather less prosperous times have not diminished, and we are very, very, very focused on managing our cash flow, managing our debt maturities, and working through a strategy to continually improve this business. Fortunately for us, we sell products that, while I don't want to, I'm not going to suggest, well, they're not completely recession-proof, but the fact is rice, flour, vegetable oil, milk, etc. We sell a lot of essentials, and more sort of higher-end products tend to be cut first before our products will be cut. That does not mean that we are going to reduce our investment in research and development and our innovation pipeline, nor does it mean that we're going to stop growing and continuing on our strategy. We will continue to do what we're doing, but we are very conscious of what's happening in the global money markets, etc. We are very, very focused on debt maturities when they mature, what we're doing about that. Our cash flow management is also very focused. And we feel that we're in a fairly good position to not only work through less than ideal conditions, but ideally take advantage and prosper within them.
Yeah, Chairman, the question, there are two types of recession going on. Within the local economy, I don't believe there's a risk of recession. I mean, I think that recession is defined by declining GDP growth over a period of time. I see Jamaica actually, because our base is so low, I actually see our GDP growing. I think the recession of concerns is a recession in the United States. That would have a direct impact on remittances and et cetera, et cetera. But the U.S. is itself sending so much conflicting signals, you know. The labor market is super hot. I mean, the people are spending, et cetera. You know, so I think sometimes we're looking for, I mean, as the chairman said, the portfolio products we carry are fairly inelastic. And we believe that, you know, we're expanding the business. I spoke about new markets. I spoke about new opportunities. I believe that, you know, your company is in a good position to weather through any recession at this point in time. But I think the biggest concern is really not a recession in Jamaica. I don't really think that's a big risk. I think the recession of concern would be in the United States if there's one.
Yeah, I agree with that sentiment. I think Jamaica is well poised economically, both from a fiscal position and the future is very rosy for Jamaica, providing that we manage the labor supply side in an appropriate manner.
Okay, David Rose is asking for an update on the Seprod logistics park and the new warehouse.
Richard, do you want to take that?
Okay, the chairman referred to the 300,000 square foot, logistics park we're building out. So we're supposed to have gone live maybe 3 months ago. I mean, we've not gone fully live. We're in the process of using it. Again, we had lots of issues with equipment coming into the country and, you know, shipping delays, etc. As it is now, by the end of October, we're fully live, but we're actually started using Chairman and already started reducing the complexity of the warehousing and logistics. It will be an ongoing process, but certainly to our shareholders, we can tell you that the end is in sight. You know, we want to give credit to a number of people who have helped with that. You know, people like our director Michael Sabati, etc., have worked very hard on this, and we expect by the end of October to be in a much better position, and you know, can send some nice pictures and stuff after that.
Yes, yes. The next question.
David Rose again is asking, how have sales been with the summer period and back to school rush?
Okay, I want to explain something brief to everybody quickly. So, I mean, you know, companies are going to come out and you're going to speak, you're going to see massive revenue growth, right? I'm not actually a big proponent at this time of looking at revenue, because revenue is volume times the price, right? And prices have moved significantly over the last year and a half, 2 years. So you have to be careful. You have to look at the underlying business. So I want to speak about the volume as opposed to the revenue. Certainly, school reopening has been important for us. For example, our biscuit factory has gone from less than 50% production. We're now up to around 85% production again. We have seen increase in demand for the food items, etc. I mean, having said that, I mean, there's definite pressure on consumer spending. I mean, there's pressure on consumer spending. We have seen in some key areas like on the flour, for example, there's decline. And people are definitely spending. If you go into a supermarket or a shop, you know, people buy what they want, and then they see the cashier checking, reach a certain amount, and leave stuff behind. So people are making decisions every day. It's really hard out there. We're confident of our numbers. I mean, what we have been doing, what's happening really well for Seprod is that we're seeing real strong growth on the export side, which we had to compromise by deciding that we want to make sure we kept our local market supply. However, we have now removed that restriction. As of August, we have started back fulfilling all our export situation. So, you know, it's the demand overall for the company is definitely climbing. And we expect to see strong growth going forward. But definitely reopening of the society, the entertainment sector, the schools have been very, very positive, have been positive for us.
Okay, I'm getting a time check here, but I'll answer this one from David Rose. Could any unanswered questions in this meeting be published on the Seprod Investor Relations section and in the company's minutes? And I'll answer that as yes for us to take the final online question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Are there any other questions?
But I'd say, though, we have a nice website, brand new, with our team in Trinidad and Jamaica work collaboratively on to execute it up this morning. Go on it, use it. Mr. Chris, use it, and they will definitely be answering all the time, you know, and wherever we are in the world, we'll find it and answer. And www.seprod.com.
All right. If there's no further questions,
We'll talk afterwards. We'll show you how to use it.
Okay. All right. Good.
Oh, you'll show him? Oh, please, God, thank you.
Good. Okay, I move that the director's report, the auditor's report, and the audited accounts showing the position of the company's affairs at December 31st, 2021, now and before the meeting, be and are hereby approved and adopted. Can someone please second the motion? Thank you. We have to now wait 20 seconds, I believe, for online vote. Okay, motion carried. Thank you very much. Election of directors. Mr. Peter John Thwaites retired from the Board of Directors effective December 31st, 2021. I'd like to note our huge appreciation for the time that Peter John worked as a director of the company. He was one of the longest standing directors of the company, and he committed an awful lot of time to Seprod, and we are very grateful for that, and we wish him the very best in his retirement. In accordance with the Articles 89 and 91 of the company's Articles Association, the following directors are retiring from office and are being eligible offer themselves for re-election. That is Mr. Christopher Gentles, Mr. Nicholas Jones, and Mr. Patrick Scott. Mr. Mark Suomi was appointed to the Board of Directors effective January 31st, 2022. He too retires from office and, being eligible, offers himself for re-election. Will somebody please move that the nominations be made en bloc? Thank you very much.
Resolution 2A. I have heard you ask for a vote on that.
Yes, I did. And as such, I'm carrying on with the meeting. If you wouldn't mind, please sit down. Thank you. Okay. Can I have a second for moving on block? Mr. Michael Sobrati, thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. We have to wait 20 seconds for the virtual meeting. Remuneration of directors. I move that the amount shown in the accounts for the year ended 31st December 2021 for directors' fees be and is hereby approved. Will somebody please second the motion? Mr. Michael Sparty, thank you very much. All in favor? Thank you. Thank you. Appointment and remuneration of auditors. Pricewaterhouse have indicated their willingness to continue in office as auditors. I move that PricewaterhouseCoopers be reappointed auditors for the ensuing year. Can I have a second, please? Mr. Michael Sobrati. I now move that the directors be authorized to fix and agree the remuneration of the auditors. Can someone please second? Thank you, sir. Can we now move on and have a vote on the foregoing motions? Thank you. All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much. We'll wait 20 seconds for the virtual vote. Thank you. Dividend payment. The company made the following dividend payments during the year. A payment of 30 cents to shareholders on record on March 10th, 2021 was made on March 15th, 2021. A payment of 50 cents to shareholders on record as of August 12th, 2021 was made on August 20th, 2021. And a payment of 50 cents to shareholders on record as of November 26th, 2021 was made on December 10th, 2021. I move that the dividends be payable on March 15th, 2021, August 20th, 2021, December 10th, 2021 be and are hereby approved. Can someone please second the motion? Thank you, sir. All in favor? Aye, thank you. We will wait 20 seconds. Okay, thank you very much. Motion carried. Is there any other business to be appropriately discussed at this meeting? If there's no other business, I wish everyone a very great day and have a good day. I will bring the meeting to a close. Thank you very much.
Shareholders, there are refreshments outside afterwards, so while we are engaged with each other, please avail yourself.